The bass line of Dear Mama filled the Beacon Theater as 3,000 intimate fans swayed to Tupac's heartfelt tribute, completely unaware they were about to witness the most harrowing intervention attempt in hip-hop history. When DMX stumbled onto the stage in the middle of the performance, his eyes glazed and his movements erratic from substances that had clearly overwhelmed his system. What followed would test the limits of brotherhood, compassion, and the dangerous intersection of addiction and live performance. That March night in New York would prove that sometimes trying to save someone in public can become the most shocking spectacle of all, and that the line between help and harm is thinner than anyone wants to admit. It was March 28, 1996, at the Beacon Theater on the Upper West Side during Tupac's Intimate Acoustic Soul Tour, a series of smaller venue performances designed to showcase his more introspective and personal material. The show had been particularly meaningful because it was taking place in New York, allowing Tupac to demonstrate his artistic growth to the city that had initially been skeptical of his West Coast success. But what made this evening tragic was the deteriorating condition of DMX, who had been struggling with substance abuse issues that were becoming increasingly difficult to hide from the hip-hop community. DMX's addiction to crack cocaine and other substances had been an open secret among industry insiders, but few people understood how severely it was affecting his mental and physical health. The two artists had developed a mutual respect based on their shared experiences with poverty, violence, and the struggle to transform pain into art. But Tupac had been watching DMX's decline with growing concern and had been privately trying to convince him to seek help for his addiction issues. What Tupac didn't know was that DMX had been using heavily before arriving at the Beacon Theater that night, and that his decision to appear at the venue was part of a deteriorating pattern of behavior that was putting both his career and his life in serious danger. The evening had started as one of Tupac's most emotionally powerful performances. The intimate setting allowed his lyrics to take center stage, and the smaller crowd was completely engaged with the personal and introspective content of his music. The atmosphere felt more like a therapy session than a traditional concert, with Tupac sharing stories about his childhood, his relationship with his mother, and his hopes for the future. But during the middle of Dear Mama, DMX appeared in the wings of the stage, his presence immediately noticeable, because everything about his appearance and behavior suggested he was under the influence of substances that had compromised his ability to think clearly or control his actions. At first, security tried to prevent him from entering the stage area, but DMX's celebrity status and his apparent friendship with Tupac made them hesitant to physically remove him without clear direction from the performer. As DMX stumbled onto center stage, the crowd's initial excitement at seeing another hip-hop star quickly turned to concern as they realized something was seriously wrong with his condition. Tupac stopped his performance mid-verse, immediately recognizing that DMX was in crisis and needed help rather than confrontation or embarrassment. Tupac said softly into his microphone, his voice carrying clearly through the intimate venue. "What's going on, man? You okay?" Instead of responding to Tupac's concern, DMX grabbed one of the backup microphones and began speaking in a way that was clearly influenced by whatever substances he had consumed. "Pig old," DMX said, his voice slurred and his thoughts jumping erratically. "I need to tell these people, I need to tell them about the pain, about the darkness, about what this industry does to people like us." The crowd was uncomfortable witnessing what was clearly a person in crisis, but they were also riveted by the raw honesty of someone whose usual filters had been completely removed by substance use. "The music, it ain't enough," DMX continued, his voice rising with emotion that seemed to come from a place of genuine anguish. "The success, it ain't enough. The money, it ain't enough. Nothing stops the pain except," he gestured vaguely, apparently referring to the substances that had brought him to this condition. Tupac's response showed both his compassion and his understanding that he was dealing with someone whose judgment had been severely compromised by addiction. "Dad, let's talk about this backstage," Tupac said, walking closer to DMX, with the kind of calm body language that people use when trying to de-escalate dangerous situations. "Let's get you some help, man. This ain't the place for this conversation. But DMX's response would prove that substance-influenced honesty can be both revelatory and destructive. Nah, this is exactly the place, DMX said, now addressing the entire crowd while clearly struggling to maintain his balance. Because all y'all think we got it made. All y'all think success fixes everything. All y'all think fame heals the wounds. The crowd was witnessing something unprecedented, a major artist having what appeared to be a complete breakdown in front of them, with his thoughts and pain completely unfiltered by the usual professional barriers. But look at me, DMX continued, his voice now carrying a desperation that was heartbreaking to witness. Look at what I became. Look at what this industry, what this pain, what this darkness turned me into. Tupac realized that the situation was escalating beyond his ability to control through simple conversation, and that DMX's condition was potentially dangerous both to himself and to everyone else in the venue. I'm gonna help you get through this, Tupac said, now standing directly beside DMX and speaking in a way that was clearly meant to be calming and supportive. But we need to get you somewhere safe first. We need to get you some medical attention. But what DMX revealed next would shock everyone in the venue and expose the darker side of hip-hop success that most fans never see. You want to help me? DMX asked, his voice carrying a combination of gratitude and resentment. Then tell them the truth about what we do to survive. Tell them about the substances we use to numb the pain. Tell them about the addiction that comes with trying to turn trauma into entertainment. The crowd was now witnessing what felt like a confession, and many people were clearly uncomfortable with the level of personal revelation they were being forced to witness. Tell them, DMX continued, now seeming to address both Tupac and the audience, about how we get addicted to the same substances we rap about selling. Tell them about how the pain that makes our music authentic is the same pain that destroys our lives. Tupac's response showed that he understood he was dealing with someone whose ability to make rational decisions had been compromised, but who was also expressing genuine truths about the relationship between artistic success and personal destruction. You're right about the pain, Tupac acknowledged, apparently trying to validate DMX's feelings while steering the conversation toward getting him help. You're right about the struggles that come with success, but this isn't how we deal with those struggles. This isn't how we heal. How do we heal? DMX asked, his voice now carrying genuine desperation. Because I've tried everything. I've tried therapy. I've tried rehab. I've tried prayer. I've tried music, and I keep coming back to the same substances that are killing me. The honesty of his admission was devastating, and the crowd was witnessing someone at their absolute lowest point, stripped of all pretense and professional image. Tupac made a decision that would prove both compassionate and controversial. He decided to use the public platform to stage an impromptu intervention. Listen to me, Tupac said, now speaking directly into his microphone so that his words carried to everyone in the venue. I know you're in pain. I know success didn't fix the problems you thought it would fix. I know the substances seem like they help, but they're making everything worse. The crowd was now witnessing something unprecedented, a public intervention attempt between two major artists, with thousands of people serving as witnesses to someone's most vulnerable moment. But you got people who love you, Tupac continued. You got fans who need you to get better. You got music that only you can make. And you got a choice right now between continuing to destroy yourself or accepting help from people who want to see you survive. DMX's response would prove that addiction creates a kind of logic that makes sense to the person experiencing it, even when it seems completely irrational to everyone else. The music comes from the pain, DMX said, his voice now showing some clarity despite his obviously compromised condition. If I heal from the pain, if I stop using the substances, what if I can't make music anymore? What if getting clean means losing the only thing that makes me valuable? The question was heartbreaking because it revealed the fundamental fear that many artists have about recovery, the worry that their creativity is inseparable from their suffering. Tupac's response would prove that he had thought deeply about the relationship between personal healing and artistic authenticity. Your value doesn't come from your pain, Tupac said, his voice now carrying genuine emotion. Your value comes from your ability to survive pain and help other people survive their pain. If you get clean, if you get healthy, you don't lose your music. You gain the ability to help other people who are struggling with the same issues. The wisdom of Tupac's response was obvious, but DMX's condition made it difficult for him to process complex arguments or long-term thinking. What happened next would prove that public interventions can have unintended consequences, and that trying to help someone in crisis doesn't always lead to the outcomes that everyone hopes for. Instead of accepting Tupac's offer of help, DMX became increasingly agitated and defensive, apparently feeling embarrassed and attacked by the public nature of the intervention. "You think you can fix me in front of all these people?" DMX asked, his voice now carrying anger along with the desperation. "You think you can make yourself look good by saving the crackhead rapper?" The accusation hit Tupac hard, because it suggested that his intervention attempt was motivated by self-interest rather than genuine concern. "That's not what this is about," Tupac replied, but his voice showed that DMX's words had hurt him. "This is about trying to keep you alive. This is about trying to get you help before it's too late." But DMX's response would prove that addiction creates a paranoia that makes it difficult for people to accept help, even when it's genuinely offered. "It's already too late," DMX said, his voice now carrying a finality that was terrifying to everyone listening. "I've been too far gone for too long. The substances aren't destroying me. They're the only thing keeping me functional enough to perform." The crowd was now witnessing what felt like someone giving up on themselves in real time, and the atmosphere in the venue had become heavy with the weight of witnessing genuine human tragedy. Tupac made one final attempt to reach DMX, using the kind of direct, honest communication that cuts through addiction-induced defenses. "If you die from this, it won't just hurt you," Tupac said, his voice now showing genuine desperation. "It'll hurt everyone who looks up to you, everyone who sees their own struggles in your music, everyone who needs you to prove that people like us can survive and overcome." But DMX's final response would prove that sometimes trying to save someone publicly can become more about the spectacle than about the person who needs help. "Maybe that's what they need to see," DMX said, his voice now carrying a disturbing calm. "Maybe they need to see what happens when the pain wins. Maybe my death will help more people than my recovery ever could." The words sent shockwaves through the venue, and many people in the audience were now crying as they witnessed what felt like someone announcing their own surrender to forces that had been destroying them for years. Tupac, realizing that the public intervention had failed and that DMX's condition was beyond what could be addressed through conversation, finally called for medical assistance and ended the performance early. The Beacon Theater intervention became one of the most controversial moments in hip-hop history, with some people praising Tupac's compassion and others criticizing the public nature of his attempt to help DMX. For DMX, the incident marked a turning point in how his addiction issues were perceived by the public, but it didn't immediately lead to the kind of sustained recovery that everyone hoped for. For Tupac, the experience reinforced his belief that artists have a responsibility to help each other, but it also showed him the limitations of public interventions and the complexity of addiction recovery. 16 years later, the night when Tupac tried to save DMX on stage remains one of the most emotionally devastating moments in hip-hop history, proving that sometimes the most shocking outcomes come not from violence or conflict, but from witnessing someone's genuine struggle with forces that are stronger than fame, success, or good intentions.